Ba-da-ba.
Dad
You
would
guys are
want you to
such
choose-
Welcome to The Second Wall, a binge-free zone where we look at a series and discuss it in small movements. This time we are discussing the 2017 series Your Lie in April. It can be found on most podcast and social media platforms, a full list of which can be found at beardyandthebeast.com. Please watch the final episode, and join Drew and I in the lobby to discuss the show afterwards. I'm a masochist.
So Devin, I know this is an anime that you really enjoy.
Yes.
And you've watched it many, many times.
Yes.
And really the only thing that I have to say about it at this point is that's the way you do a freaking ending. Am I right?
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
Oh.
Talk about like the epitome of climaxes right there.
Man, like last episode, I could smell some onions being chopped, but it's just kind of in the distance. That last episode, not so much.
Really?
It hits me. It's like a release of all of the emotions that's built up. So very specifically, when he's reading Kaori's letter, it's just all of that. I don't know. I don't know. It's like this bittersweet sorrow, and it just hits me every time. It's the buildup of, the performance. You can see where it's going. They kind of give you that little bit of hope at the ending because, we're seeing her on the table, but, we're seeing her eyes flutter. We see her vital stats and nothing's freaking out. And then you switch to that duet. And if there's ever a tell me she didn't make it without telling me she didn't make it moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just I don't know, it's you get that build up and you just know. And they don't make a big spectacle out of it, which is nice. But you just get her letter and you get her actual emotions, the things that us as viewers likely knew. I'm not sure if you realized that at first, like what the lie in April actually was.
Mm-hmm.
It just I don't know, lets the emotion release, honestly, in a similar way that some of the emotional beats we've been seeing throughout the show with the other characters have been. Just hits, and it's like...
So you use the term bittersweet, which is also what I found. The thing is, the song that he was playing and the way that it was kind of like fluttering in playfully and then dramatically, and then there was sorrow and happiness, and the way that it was kind of traveling like the wind, right?
Mm-hmm.
It made me skeptical, especially knowing that it was like the climax of the show. I'm like, they're just building up this joy right now, to like knock me down after. And I'm glad that they didn't do that. They did this in such a way more tasteful way.
Yeah.
Where for, was it like the first 9 minutes of the show or 8 minutes of the show, they're just purely playing with your emotions.
Yeah.
Like, you know that something's gonna happen to Kaori, but they keep going like, is it though? Is it not? Like, it's definitely kind of going in between, back and forth, and it kind of solidifies and you know something is definitely of issue when she shows up,
Mm,
and you're like, and then she starts playing the duet with him, which was just amazing.
yes.
Um,
Um,
so I really liked the letter part in general,
mm,
but for me, the emotions of it were just rehashing what we've already experienced in the song.
yeah.
So it didn't hit me like that. Like it wasn't like as tear jerking as like Harry's uh monologue to the doctor, or seeing Kousei on the ground, where Aiza and Igawa are like, what's wrong with you, right?
Yeah.
um
Oh,
One thing that I really, really appreciated there is there was a closure that you didn't know that you needed. It was
mm,
essentially the answer you needed for a question we never asked. The way that they introduce Kaori through the series,
yeah.
you just assume that she's like a force of nature, that she's always been there.
Yeah.
Like she comes in with this wind just disturbing everything and tossing papers around the room and just having her way with the environment, right? But every other character in this show, um, except for best waifu Washiwagi, um, had an entire, like, if not an entire episode, like a solid half episode dedicated to how they were influenced and inspired by childhood Kousei.
Yeah.
So for them to wrap that up when I didn't even know I needed that, like, it was so beautiful.
Oh, it's funny. So it's one of the things that I noted down way back. I guess it would have been episode like 10 or 11, during the tournament arc. Um,
Tournament arc.
um, and I knew that there was no way you were going to pick up on it.
Mm-mm.
Like it just knowing that it was Kaori sitting beside Igawa in that little flashback scene. Um, something on a repeat viewing. Like even then, even with the binge repeat viewing we did before doing this episode, you still probably wouldn't have caught that one.
No, I didn't see that because I hadn't seen episode 22, right, where they
Yeah,
solidified that.
exactly. Yeah, you just kind of touching on that, how childhood Kousei influenced everyone. Um, I don't. It also like really hits hard with him actually realizing the influence he had, the support network he had, because we kind
Mm-hmm.
of got in and out of that throughout the entire show. Um, and just seeing her, just knowing that we didn't get that influence because we've been seeing that influence the entire show with Kaori.
Well, that's the thing. Like the full circle nature of it, um, is kind of like I mean, obviously resolved, but the tragedy of Kousei was when he had passion for the
Yeah,
piano, when he was able to put emotions into it. He inspired all these people to find their own sound,
yeah,
and then he lost his. And through all those people that he inspired, he was able to find his again.
yeah. Um, I know you've mentioned to me that you don't always listen to the openings and ending songs.
Still haven't.
Uh, uh, well, it's funny because like the second season opening actually talks about like how it's all going into circles like that. So like that roundabout uh, nature is spelled out in pieces.
Well, that'd be the perfect intro for this final episode because they keep doing it, right?
Yeah.
Like this one is definitely a series of large circles filled with smaller circles, just like feeding into itself. All the little story beats that we encountered,
Mhm.
um, looping into each other. They might not be resolved or completed, but they're definitely coming full cycle.
Yeah. It's oh, it it's powerful. Just it's how you end it. I mean, to go back to right back from our first episode, you're like, oh, I hope they can keep this up and they don't lose it. Um, you know, uh, I'm glad that you found that it didn't.
Well, I really like that Kousei's character, through these experiences and refining himself, finally learned a healthy way to deal with his grief.
Yes.
Because, like, to have someone he cared about so much pass, we got to keep in mind it's only been like what 2 years, 3 years, I
Yeah.
guess 3 years at this point, since his mom passed.
Yeah.
That's not much time for that kind of relationship, right?
No.
So, and I mean, it's obvious that he's not fine,
Yeah.
but he's not self-destructive.
And that's one thing I've actually really liked that they did with the show. They never tried to paint him as fine.
Mm-hmm.
They they painted him as moving forward, which of course they repeated a lot in the last several episodes. Uh, which is really what you can do, what you can hope for.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep moving forward, keep going, find that reason. And I mean, like you really get that feeling, like especially in the episode before, where it could go either way. Like, is he actually going to be able to step on stage and play it all? And it would have been perfectly reasonable for him to not be able to play.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like as he said to Aiza and Nagawa, it's like, no, I have to play. I made a promise.
Yeah, and if he didn't, he would of course be haunted.
Yeah. um. Yeah. So just kind of going back to like the playing of the emotions of like, is she going to make it? Is she not going to make it?
Mm-hmm.
I think what could have changed that so to me it's obvious that she's not going to make it. Even
I
like
thought so as
obviously
well.
I've seen it, but it's little things like it's called the final episode. Like it's not episode 22, it was 18 was the name of the episode.
Yeah.
So we knew it was the end already, and we knew there's no way that we're going to be seeing two performances in the episode.
Yeah.
um, but I think Kousei feels like he did get to play with her one last time, even though they didn't share the stage. And you see him not give in to that. Again, he went through. He let his emotions go. Just shine through his music instead.
Well, and that's why the piece selection that they chose for this episode was so good, because like it had the ups and downs and it had positivity and negativity. And like I don't know too much about music, but I definitely think it probably transitioned frequently between a minor and a major. Um, to really give like a joyful and a sorrowful sound.
Yeah.
So, and I mean that's kind of the entire series altogether.
Yeah. Yeah. The ups and downs and the roller coaster of it all.
Mm-hmm.
From an ending standpoint of the show, I'm all over the place. I literally just watched it. My brain's still going. um,
Yeah, I watched it like an hour ago or whatever. So I've just been
yeah,
kind of like sitting here sipping on some sparkling water. Uh,
yeah,
I like one of the main reasons why I like it is it was emotionally complex without being complex story wise or character wise. We're working with everything that was built up until then.
yeah,
And there wasn't a lot of like set pieces or characters in this. It's one of the major things I really appreciate about this episode that made like if it was powerful, it made it, from A class powerful to S class powerful. Is they started out well a little bit with the audience,
yeah,
especially when Kousei was like talking about the sounds that he achieved from the other people, and then it just kind of cut them away,
yeah,
and it was just Kousei playing.
yeah,
Because I was sitting here and I'm like, I really hope they're not going to have the audience just commenting throughout this entire piece they're about to play, because this is such a beautiful piece.
yeah.
And then when it just became Kousei and his emotions, and then they introduced Kaori, and like she didn't really say much, it was just an experience.
Yeah.
That's what made it so like tremendously powerful.
Mhm. Well, that's exactly it. It's an experience,
Mm-hmm.
and it yeah, it was very effective in portraying that experience. Like you didn't need anything else. It doesn't matter that there was like hardly anything said in the first half the episode
Mm-hmm.
because you know anything that can be said is expressed better through music. They're musicians after all.
Well, and that's one of the things, like, I mentioned this in one of the previous recordings, why visually it's so stunning, and it might be because it's, like, this came after a manga, right?
Yeah.
Um, but for, like, laymen like me who don't know much about the structure of music, we're just like, I like to listen to a thing. Um, being able to express that visually as well,
Mhm.
enhance that power. Um, they've been doing well up until this point, but this is where they transcended that. They
Yeah.
went to great, right? Like all the different colors expressing all the little emotions, and then the shot choices, and then we have leaves in the wind, and then we have this like, is it a skyscape? Is it an oceanscape? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah. I think of like the other visuals, like the visuals of him carrying her back down from the
Mm-hmm.
episode before, where it's just like that single set of footsteps, just like the little impression on the bench. It's like everything about it. It shows the both the loneliness and the care
Mm-hmm.
that's there. Which again, it's been expressed throughout the series right from the beginning. Uh, and I think that's a big thing to point out. Is like the theme the show stayed very thematically consistent, unlike
Mm-hmm.
some second seasons of shows we've watched.
What? No shows we've watched have had second seasons. What? Eve no Can, Firefly, Your Lie in April, and Carol on Tuesday. None of those had second seasons.
Oh, that's true. Sorry. Potential second seasons of some other shows. um, uh, but yeah, they never. They always kept that focus, and we've praised that throughout too. Like but the idea of will it reach them, even seeing that being expressed from Zbaki,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's yeah, keeping with that, so it allows it to be tight. It allows it for us to not have to worry about what's happening with all of the characters afterwards and how Kosei's doing,
Mm-hmm.
because they just leave you with the impression that he's going to be okay, and he recognizes what he has with him, and And they tie it up with Sabaki and him at the end, where it's like, yeah, it's not even a will they won't they type thing. It's just a they are there for each other.
Yeah.
And you don't need anything more than that.
Well, there's some really clever and well forecast writing in this show that I learned from the binge watch. Just in context, we recorded this entire series from 1 to 21 in groups of 3.
Yeah.
We watched 3 episodes, recorded an episode, watched 3, and then recorded. And then before the final one, we both binged. And then I noticed a bunch of stuff, which we'll probably talk to in a short bit here. But there's an example of one of these here, and that's sure, he's gonna be okay. We know that this is good. He's moving forward. He's taking steps. But there's still hurt there. That's still pain. And if you want to do the simplest thing for a person who keeps losing people, it's to loudly pronounce that you won't be able to get rid of you. They won't be able to get rid of you. Yeah, they're stuck with you forever.
Yeah.
Essentially reassuring Kousei that he has someone by his side that's not going to leave.
Yeah, and it's Sabaki doing that, and it's also echoed even again with Kaori. It's like, well, if you forget me, I'm going to come back and haunt you. Right? It's the same thing. It's like, even she's saying, it's like, even though I'm not here, I'm always there with you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he needed. We talked about that with Seto back when she was introduced, where she couldn't be there for him. And again, no fault on her for that. She wasn't in a position to help either at that time, and as she grew as a character, she is now there, able to be there for him as much as she can. It's like, well, I made sure he's here at least, which she wouldn't have been able to do back then. Even you can tell that without even saying anything that Aiza, Igawa, they're going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And again, in the flashbacks, they always have. He just didn't notice. Yeah.
It's really interesting seeing like the threads laid bare by the note. The way that the show was presented, the lie that was told in April, I guess it's actually the thing that I'm least satisfied about with of the series. Because sure, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially when you know there's finite time. You need to bridge that gap carefully. You want to meet that person and play with that person, etc.
Yeah.
But I was perfect. Well, as much as I'm fine with any player, I was perfectly fine with Watery and Kaori. Like, it made sense to me. They structured it well. It's a high school fling, etc. They really just came off as good friends who were, dating, I guess.
Yeah.
It was nice to include that as the confession, I guess. Like, it put some power on the letter, but I don't think it needed it. It's just like this. I'm just dissatisfied with the lie, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things with it. I mean, one, like, they're very young. Like,
Yeah.
they're 13, 14. I think her reasoning made sense, and I think it wasn't meant for us as the audience,
Yeah.
because us as the audience, we also had Watery spelling it out. It's like, who is she going to when she needs something?
Mm.
It's not me. I know this. And but I think it was something that Kousei needed to hear, and we needed to know that Kousei heard it, because as far as he knew, this was just unrequited love. He thought it was one-sided up until that point, essentially,
Mm.
right?
And
Without
I'm inclined to agree with this point. And I also know, like, it would be very, when you are in such a precarious health position, it is not a fantastic place to be putting yourself into a new romantic situation like that.
yeah,
So there is some introspection that happens there.
yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's just like, when the thing is, like, when the rest of the episode before that is so much more powerful, like, maybe that's what it is. It's a comparative thing. And then just this love declaration at the end, I'm just like, I guess, but, like, have you been watching the other, like, 18 minutes of this episode?
Yeah, but so I think part of it too, like, and I definitely see where you're coming from with that. Uh, I almost think that if Kosei didn't hear the declaration, it might have actually messed him up more again.
Think so?
I think it could have,
Mm.
because again, now it's he lost something that he never, like. It gives that bit of closure again, I think, for him, knowing that it will, again, not unrequited. It just
I will agree, but there is also the point of view, like, we have to assume that Kaori knew his heart. Therefore, what you're saying makes sense, so I will agree.
Yeah.
There is the opposite side of that coin, though, where declaration like that can open the wound and cause the tailspin when someone who is dealing with it and will be okay, right? So I'm going to discount that side of the coin and go with your side, because it narratively makes more sense.
Yeah.
Especially, to sound like a total cheeseball, someone who can see Kousei's sound.
Yeah.
Who knows his heart, right?
Yeah.
Like, she would have known to some degree that declaration would not hurt him.
Yeah. And the little picture that she kept of them.
That was adorable. I think that was better than the declaration. I wonder if on the back of that letter there's a map to a hidden treasure. Or is it not that kind of declaration?
We're gonna make delicious jams and jellies. Yeah, no, I can see where you're going. It's a little cheesy, but
like, if it, I think, yeah, I could see this. So I think that having that declaration for you would be a good thing and bring in that closure.
Yeah.
I think for me, it would be the opposite. So, but then again, our perspective carries in this case. Will carry for you, obviously. Washawagi for me.
Obviously.
would know that it would be best not to say such a thing.
Yeah. I also really enjoyed how through the binge watch you realized that she actually was there in episode 1.
What? No, she didn't show up till episode 5.
No, she was in episode 1.
She didn't have any lines.
Yes, but she was there.
Doesn't count.
Totally counts.
She contributed in episode 5.
Totally counts. Hey, I'm pretty sure she was the one who pitched the ball that had Kousei get knocked out the first time.
Probably. You know what? What's really funny about that, like one of the jokes that I said, she was giving like the sage-like advice out in this entire thing from like a girl's perspective.
Yeah.
And then it just comes in at the end. It's like, how do you know all this? And it's like, I just know, like, boys love. I guess that's probably a magazine or an article. Like,
yeah.
And it has a little caption like, Washiwagi has never had a boyfriend.
Yeah. It's interesting that actually, like this last episode, it actually made me go, it's like, there could be a really interesting shoujo version of this following Tsubaki and Washigawa. I bet you could get a fantastic story there too, because there's a lot of parallels, like, with those two when you compare Watery and Kousei. It's like, I could see there being a story there. Not that it needed in any way, just entered my mind. It's like, yeah, I could see a different perspective being shown.
Is it? Maybe it's because of the nature of the relationships of this, but I kept getting the feeling that Kashiwagi liked Tsubaki, like romantically. So that's in my head canon.
I don't think I saw anything like that.
No, you're wrong.
I'm just saying, I didn't see it. Yeah. I'm not one to ship normally.
So I guess we're talking about the binging.
Yes.
So I mentioned this like a few moments ago. So the writing of this was fantastic. This isn't some like pseudo Joss Whedon, like throw everything against the wall and then we'll just pick up things later. We don't have any, mantis eggs in the basement, etc.
Yeah.
Or secret invisible killers of ignored students. So Kaori's three major expressed motivational points throughout the show have been to play with Kousei and like be around Kousei.
Yeah.
I lost one of them. That's okay. I'll say baked goods. Baked goods. I had a second one. And the third was to not be forgotten, to live inside people's hearts.
Yeah.
So immediately when I was watching episode 2, after they see her play, and then Kousei gives this non-answer, it was actually probably the most powerful thing that Kousei could have said to Kaori at that time. And saying like, to those girls, it's a day that I'll be unforgotten. And that kind of brings me back to like what Tsubaki said to Kousei at the very last line of episode 22.
Yeah.
Like these powerful things that you don't even notice. You think it's like even just a throwaway thing or Kousei being, socially awkward, but truly probably the best compliment she's gotten about her playing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's there's moments like that throughout the entire show. And things like that were things that, of course, I noticed, but I could have never, obviously, never said because there's no way you're going to know. Um,
One other thing I really liked from episode 2, good episode, is as soon as Kaori starts playing, the way that Kousei like raises his head, there's a lot of like reflections and light spots on his eyes that make them look like they're sparkling, or seeing color. So it really gives you that impression that like those colors are beginning to wake up inside him, even though they're just introducing the fact that the world is monotone to him.
Yeah.
So good on a rewatch.
It's throughout. So like, we're focusing on like the dialogue. A lot of the way Kaori speaks is she talks about, again, the "don't forget me." There's several times where she says, at least thinks to herself, I'm not going to be there by your side. Like, she straight up tells you, it's like, I know this ain't ending well.
Yeah.
But it's done in, again, it's just kind of done in that way where casually it'd be easy to not catch that, right? Like, I would never expect Kousei to be catching what he's saying, even though I would argue he caught it. Because again, he was the only one who realized how bad she was right from the get-go. And you get the other visuals. Again, it's like making sure it's reaching people, making sure you never get forgotten. It shows her. It shows why we saw that roller coaster that Kaori had in her personality, because it really was, no, this is raining, but I don't have time. I'm going to burn bright.
Well, they expressed that so well in the final episode, like why she was the way that she was. And I like that you put it that way, that she was gonna burn bright.
Yeah. And it, again, halfway through the series, it's expressed very visually. She actually says something, can't remember exactly what it was, but during the fireworks scene, she's expressing that idea as the as her sparkler is going out. She describes the fireflies in that same language, right? And at this point here, we're in theory, we're going, it's like, okay, no, it's just a one-time thing. She's fine. Obviously, nothing could possibly go wrong.
But I mean, you and I were like, nope. This has been going on for a long time.
Yeah. And there were actually subtle things, like there were things that I realized as we were binge watching it. It's like just one of those things that show you how long it's been going on. Her house had handrails everywhere. And no one else's house has that. It's not like it's a cultural thing or something. It's like they're there for a reason.
Because they're needed.
Yeah. But because you never see her use it, it becomes one of those nice, just that subtle foreshadowing that's there. And it becomes really obvious between, I want to say episodes 19 and 20, because I didn't write down the numbers, where it would have been earlier than that. When she goes into the hospital and she misses her, the gala. No, not that part. Sorry. She collapses in the hospital again after uh, she convinces Kousei to bring her cannolis.
That's like 15 or 16.
Yeah. So she collapses in the hospital again, and then in the next, and you see her reaching for the rails, and then like the very beginning of the next episode has her in the house, and it's like,
Yeah, holding on.
and she collapses like, and just obvious like, oh.
Yeah. So well constructed.
Yeah. I think. Go ahead.
Well, I didn't say anything, but I will say something.
Yeah, I thought you were going to.
So Tsubaki.
Yes.
I know that you have expressed some discontent to how she acted towards Kousei, especially when they're supposed to be so close.
Yeah.
But in the binge watch, I didn't realize this in my initial viewing. Straight out of episode 4, when he's playing the piano next to Kaori, she knew immediately at that point, like she could see the colors of his heart and knew that he was leaving her from that point on.
Yeah.
So they started expressing that to the audience like way after that episode. But her actions started ramping up from that point.
Yeah.
And I did not catch that on my first view, and I was just like, once you know like how the piano no jutsu works in Your Lie in April, you go, oh, I see it now.
Yeah. Yeah, again, just goes to show like literally nothing wasted.
Mm-hmm. The other, like, kind of speaking about like the heart of the cards, I mean heart of the piano. One thing that I notice is people. So one of the big things that they do in this is people kind of like inwardly monologue about the emotions and the experience that they're feeling while they're listening to music.
Yes.
And it's interesting to me that they keep expressing like colors and emotions to Kousei's music, even when he himself still sees in the monotone. So that is a way that really enforces that this world that he's seeing is that self-imposed block. Yeah. It's just like another factor, like the ghost of his mother.
Yes.
That he's putting upon himself.
Yeah, just a continuation of that shadow.
Mm-hmm.
And
good term.
Yeah, it's one of the things that, again, Seto calls him out on that, where she mentions, good, you're not hearing your notes. Now you can actually let the emotions go through. And it's things that obviously he was always doing and was always holding himself back. Because that's what his mother wanted, right?
Yeah, he started by putting his emotions into it and then became the human metronome because of his like abusive stage mother.
Yeah.
Wasn't even her final form.
Never is.
One thing I didn't notice until this watch, I thought it was a bit of a throwaway for Miss Seto to, what'd she say? Like, I can be your guardian.
Yeah.
To Kousei, like, partway through it. But then when confronted by Takashi's little sister, she just straight up calls Kousei my son.
Yeah.
Which I really appreciated and I didn't pick up on at all.
No, she yeah, she's just and then like Nagi actually does I don't know, just rewatching it, Nagi messing with Kousei and her just glaring, backing off.
Yeah. Oh,
I
the perfect little joke insert, like to prevent the last episode from being too ultra serious, was when she was when Nagi was watching Kousei play and like all dreamlike, and then it's like, no, it's not like that. It's not like I want Kousei to play me like a piano. That's so cliche. And I'm like, whoa, girl, whoa. That's Takashi's little sister to you. One line I didn't notice at in the original watch, maybe because I was laughing already, was the whole like, I won't have you making a move on my little sister. He's like, what? No, I haven't done that at all. It's like, why not? She's hot. Like just taking the opposite side of whatever Kousei's saying.
Yeah. Again, it's because I know like when we were first watching, it's like, oh, there's probably a big age gap. Didn't feel that age gap in the binge watch.
They're both in junior high. One's, you know,
One's
grade
13, one's 14.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah. But yeah, just kind of seeing that spark in her. I think it was kind of adorable. So did you catch in the binge watch how long Kaori had actually known Kousei?
No, not at all.
Okay. So when they go to when he meets her parents,
yeah,
they are going on. It's like, oh, finally we get to meet him. We've been watching you for years.
I mean, like, I just because she plays violin, he plays piano. Like,
we've never seen a piano and violin contest.
No, but I mean, like, it's classical music, and like, there was a sense that was made to it.
Yeah.
Again, like, I liked that they brought that together. Again, the answer to the question we never asked.
Yeah.
But I would have been perfectly fine if she was just like a force of nature that was always been there.
Yeah. I kind of like that it wasn't.
It's stronger narratively that it wasn't. Like,
yeah,
it suits the themes.
Yeah, it means she wasn't that manic pixie dream girl. After all,
how dare you? How dare you? You've ruined my childhood. No, it's true though. You're right.
Though, here's an interesting thing that I thought of, and I don't think there's any accuracy to it at all. But I know we've always talked about her eyes changing color throughout. And obviously this happens like mid-scene, so it's not the case. But now it's just like, oh, her eyes were sparkling here because she was wearing contacts or she wasn't.
I mean, sure.
No, I know that's not the case. Just found it a little bit of levity in it.
Well, on my binge watch, I was like, because I was watching for it, right?
Yeah.
Trying to see the pattern.
Yeah.
And I think it was more related to like where on her spectrum of energy she was. But I kept trying to match it up, like maybe it's changing based on who she's speaking with.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more, you know, still blue when like maybe it's an empathic thing.
Yeah.
So when Kousei's feeling down, we have the more like steel gray, blue. Maybe when he's actually feeling okay, it's kind of that blue, purple.
Yeah. One thing I noticed, like, I didn't quite pin that down, but I did notice the sparkle in her eyes changing a lot more as well,
Mm.
which I don't think I necessarily noted in just the regular watch through. It's like there was both of those factors there. And I noticed Kousei's eyes changed color sometimes too.
Mm-hmm.
Nowhere near as much. It is one of these things where if this was any other show, I'd be saying it was an animation error.
Well, and they call that out for Tsubaki. Like, her eyes change a few times.
Yeah.
Like, I think Kashiwagi says, like, your eyes have been dull lately, or something along those lines, partway through the series.
Yeah. Because, well,
best waifu.
I know, she's got that perfect disinterest for you, doesn't she?
No comment.
Oh, that's good, because if there's comment, you'd be showing interest. I kept thinking that every time I'm seeing her, like, just everyone else reacting to her just being, yeah. It's like, you know that she's reacting to it, she's just not showing any reaction to it.
I was sitting here because this is like partially a shoujo, so I was like, I was trying to match either of us up, right? And I was kind of sitting there, I'm like, you know, I could see Dev with like a Kaori type person, like not really my cup of tea. Not that I'm anti that personality or anything.
Yeah.
I'm like, I mean, Tsubaki, like, you know, fit, active, energetic, outspoken, doesn't put up with some BS. That's like what I kind of like. And then I just kind of like look over and I'm like, what about best waifu?
Well, going with these matchups, yeah, I definitely agree. Kaori, because she's got that right energy level that she would make me go do things. Which is, I need that sometimes. It's too easy for me to get in my head. Someone like that wouldn't allow that. I think Tsubaki, well, I could see where you're going with that. I think that there's a neediness to her that would drive you insane.
Okay, yeah, facts.
I think it's just that almost clingy, which I'm so glad that she actually shows some growth, you know, shows the growth at the end of the series where it's not a clinginess anymore.
I'd have been so sad if they just left her to the wind. Like,
yeah.
Because it's not really the forefront, but it is such an important side story that, like, the fact that they gave her growth and introspection and she was able to find herself and begin to move forward as well, because she stopped when Kousei stopped.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a nobleness to it, but it's not the right choice.
Yeah.
The right choice would be to keep marching forward with your friend in tow, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah. Again, just the right just that right amount of
disinterest. I agree.
I always like seeing Emmy. I it's a shame we don't see near as much of Emmy as we do Isa.
True.
I think there's a lot that could be there as well, but I also
they didn't need it.
They didn't need it. It's just she just interests me as a character and I want to see more of her. But I know it doesn't fit the story and they made the right choice. Just I want to know.
Yeah, I feel you. Like maybe like a little one shot of her doing a thing, like one shot manga, maybe.
Yeah. Just I mean, she was also pretty much an open book. Like it's clear that she cares for Kousei, even though he's her enemy, and she must destroy him and denounce him in every way possible. Uh,
Yeah, there's something so like bipolar about it too. It's like needs him but also needs to reject him at the same time.
yeah. But and the thing is, it's not foreign to the show. Like, that's something that we've seen throughout. Like, I mean, again, Takashi's little sister kind of goes through that kind of back and forth as well. Tsubaki obviously has her, not the love hate, but the little brother versus in love. And again, I like how it feels more like they went with the the interview with the vampire love. This is going to be something that transcends and doesn't matter if they end up together or not because they're there for each other. Which again, something that they had to express throughout the entire show right from the get-go. Everything just feels like again, it's that perfect flow. Just the through lines are exactly what you need.
It's one of those worlds. So like we want to see what happens to these characters, but we're satisfied with where they are now.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to see Nagi's path because it's not a competitive path.
Right.
She wants to play to express herself, right?
Yeah.
Aiza is different. He's got that competitive spirit. We got Agawa. We want to see what happens with Kousei, slightly less. Most of his interesting bits are already gone.
Yeah.
We want to see what happens with Tsubaki and Kashiwagi, etc., etc. But we're fine with where it is.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the only good Star Wars movie. Just one and done, Rogue One.
Yeah. It's a skill to be able to have a show wrapped up that you're fine going. It's like, nope, the story's done. I don't need to see more. I would like to though.
Mm-hmm. But it's also one of those things where they're like, we're coming up with a second season. You'd be like, no.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'd be saying nope. Just back out of that. Again, if there's like a collection of OVAs, just kind of seeing where did even Seto go? Where did after these things, right?
Well, that's why like the OVA for this makes sense because you were telling me it's like Aiza, Agawa, and Kousei as kids.
Yeah.
Like I think that's where you take it, right?
Yeah.
Back to the start, like kind of flush that out a little bit, but also have a new adventure, new story, while not stepping on the story and life of Kaori.
Yeah.
Which is important, like to be respectful to that character.
The only way that I would watch another season of this show is if Kousei would need to be treated like Igawa was. He's a character that is there, that we know about, but in no way the focus.
I'd want him as a teacher.
Or as a teacher or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that could be interesting.
Yeah, new kids, new problems.
Yeah.
Like maybe not necessarily someone dying, but like emphatically someone like it's probably not the right word, but someone who's definitely going to be, moving overseas because of the family or something at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Like
yeah. I would like to see where he ended up, but I don't need another story about him.
Yeah, just have him there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, have him be the Seto.
Well, then, if you treat it respectfully, unlike how Luke was treated,
yeah,
you could actually have him positively influencing the next generation, right?
Yeah. And we obviously see he's capable of that. We see that clearly with Nagi.
Mhm.
So,
Or it's blue milk that allows you to cast Force Lightning for no reason.
right. I think, and just seeing the parallels again, we talked about a lot of the stuff as we were kind of going through, just the parallels with how the characters are, how Seto is teaching Kousei while Kusei's teaching Nagi, and just those loops.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing all of that stuff push through to the emotional weights of everything hitting. Yeah, I don't know. The show lives in my head.
It's a good show. I mean, from the start, like, I think our second recording, I was like, this has the potential to be like a top 10, top 5 anime for me.
Yeah.
I don't know where I would rank it,
Mm.
but this is definitely something I would suggest to people, and it did meet that expectation.
Yeah.
But you know me, I generally don't put expectations on the media that I watch because oftentimes it lets you down.
Yeah.
But in this case, it set it, and it was able to maintain it.
Mm.
Unfortunately, most of the shonen anime, as I've been in the past, I don't really watch anime these days. But the shonen anime in the past, there's not much to them per se.
Yeah.
It's the same cycle over and over and over again to milk out money for as long as possible. And if the mangaka has a finite ending, it ends up getting pushed by the producers, and then they take it somewhere, and it's just...
And then all of a sudden we're fighting Majin Buu. And
yeah, it's... So it's hard to rank it because it is its own thing. It is definitely somewhere in between shoujo and shonen, which I guess makes it a complete story.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are these unique challenges on both sides of that spectrum that occur in this.
Yeah.
So I can see why, like, some people would hail this as one or the other.
Yeah.
Whereas it is uniquely its own thing.
Yeah, I can't remember if we said this on the podcast or while we were talking afterwards. It's very similar to what Clamp does with a lot of its style.
Mm-hmm.
Where, and it crosses that line. Like, it won't sit, like, there's things that are clearly meant to be more shoujo or more shonen, but there's always a blurring of it.
I've since adapted my thought on it. I think the Clamp stuff is deeply shoujo while taking only the pieces that it needs from shonen. Like, it doesn't pick needlessly. It's not overfilling its plate at the buffet.
Yeah.
But its structure is definitely first and foremost shoujo.
Yeah.
But that's my new perspective on it. It's not actually that far from our previous discussion, which was a after recording discussion. It's just a different perspective on the same.
Yeah.
Well, like this series. I guess I'm concluded.
Yeah.
So good.
It is really good. I think everyone should watch it. It may rain a little bit near the end.
for context, like, during this entire recording period, like, me and Devin have been sending each other the Colonel Mustang, like, standing in the sun in the graveyard, like, where he's going like, I think it's raining, and then The Hawkeye is Hawkeye, right?
Hawkeye. Yeah, it's
Goes,
Hawkeye.
it's not raining, and he's like, yes, it is, and he's crying.
Yeah.
And then she goes, yeah, I see. We've been sending each other that GIF, just like back and forth constantly.
Yeah. I think today, the time this recording, I sent one of the ending themes from Kenshin, which is called "It's Gonna Rain."
I wouldn't know because I've never seen the ending theme of Kenshin.
You're a monster.
It's not that I haven't seen Kenshin.
Yeah.
It's that I haven't seen the ending theme.
Yeah. That song's been living in my head rent free for a little bit here now.
I don't think this series is a binge series.
No.
I think it is more plainly taken in 3-episode chunks. 6 if you're really into it.
Yeah.
Like 6 and then go for the final. Or 6 and then the final. 4. Yeah, that math works. But yeah, 3-episode batches is the way to experience this.
Yeah, there's definitely a strong cadence with that. This is an interesting experience. This is the first time we did a binge watch before doing any types of these recordings. And one of the things with the second wall is we like the idea of being able to speculate and just discuss a story without having all of the information. And we've kind of had this discussion as we were watching things like Squid Games. Like, I think this was meant to be binged, and you're going to see things very differently watching that. So being able to watch a series both ways before having this final discussion is interesting. And actually, let's just say it's like, no, don't binge it. And I basically watched it over the last 3 evenings, and it's just kind of like the emotion still hits, but by binging, you don't give those emotions time to breathe.
Facts.
And like the biggest example of that was, again, it was like episode 15. It must have been episode 15 when Kaori collapses. We took a break from that, but you needed that time, like, just for our recording schedule. It was a little bit longer between watching our next batch, and
you were going crazy.
Because it just sits near, but it just sits there, and having that time to stew is important.
It makes it more powerful. So the thing is that, like, the cadence of the episodes when you're watching it in the batches of 3, in each batch of 3 you have a strong emotional experience. But if you do 6, you're suddenly having 2, and then there's a comparative thing, and then maybe the second one doesn't hit as hard because the first was so strong and powerful. For some people it might enhance, but I think it's not additive. I think it takes away.
Yeah, it's definitely meant to. You need to give it time to resonate. Just like a good piece of music, sometimes you just need to wait a few seconds before that applause comes in and let the silence finish the piece.
Or you accidentally listen to the same song on repeat for like 5 hours while on a bus between cities.
Yeah.
Yesterday was a special day, darkened by the moonlight in your eyes.
Good song.
It's a great song. And of course, any recording of Your Lie in April wouldn't be complete without me singing something, apparently.
Truth.
That's so facts, it's making dial-up sounds. Well, Dean,